The following is a presentation of the Championship Racing Network.
Drivers, start your engines. Pull those belts down tight one more time, warm up those tires, hit your marks, and let's go racing, boys and girls. Nascar, Indycar, Formula One, Formula E, and NHRA Racing Talk. This is the Championship Racing Network. Now here is your host, Steve West and Matt Nicholson, with producer John Myers.
Well, we've made it to June. Wonder if anything's happened this year. Well, just this past week, the double wasn't, but if you think that was all to talk about, you'd be wrong. Don't worry, all three of us are in studio this week, and we are going to talk a team shutting down. We're going to talk about who might be buying those charters. We're going to be talking about where those drivers might go, and we're not talking about just Cup. We're talking Xfinity as well. We'll talk about an IndyCar driver who's actually talking about a future attempt of the double. Let's face it, it's been mostly Cup drivers going to IndyCar. This time it's an IndyCar driver talking about coming and doing the double themselves. Could Ferrari be talking about going into another racing series? We'll get into that as well. Got another race tire coming in and a whole lot more coming up on this week's edition of CRN. We'll go green right after this.
Stay right here for more on the Championship Racing Network. Tires and 2 cans of fuel, and we're back to more racing action on the Championship Racing Network.
Welcome back. We appreciate you joining us on this kind of rainy Saturday in East Central Alabama, and it's that rain that actually has things kind of being messed up over by the Mississippi River as well. We'll get into that here in just a couple of minutes. I'm Steve West. That's Matt Nicholson. Producer John Myers along with us here, all three of us, as we kick off this particular show and talk about a very busy weekend from what happened last weekend. So let's talk about it. Last Saturday, things getting rolling with Charlotte and the Xfinity Series getting it underway. Justin Allgaier swept both stages, but when the checkers were shown, it was Moonlighter Chase Elliott leading in the part-time Hendrick Motorsports entry. A little bit of strategy by the crew chief, keeping a set of sticker tires for that final stop. Turned out to be the right move.
It was.
They're most people don't realize this, but they're very limited in the Xfinity Series as to how many sets of tires they get.
Pretty tight.
So, Chase Elliott beating Brandon Jones. Then you got Sammy Smith, Sam Mayer, A.J. Allmendinger. Moonlighter Kyle Busch was in 6th. Huh. The last time we were talking about Moonlighter Kyle Busch and not penciling him in as the winner.
It's been a while.
That's surprising.
Isn't it, though? Ryan Sieg, Josh Williams, and then Moonlighters Ty Gibbs and Noah Gragson completing the top 10. With no new playoff contenders, Austin Hill, Chandler Smith in with 2 wins, single wins for Justin Allgaier, Jesse Love, Sam Mayer. So those 5 are locked in amongst the ones who are in on points. Cole Custer leads them, then A.J. Allmendinger, Riley Erbst, Sheldon Creed, Parker Kligerman, Brandon Jones, and Anthony Alfredo. Alfredo leads Sammy Smith for that final playoff position, that 12th one, by a slim 2 points. That brings us to a busy Sunday. Antonio Felix da Costa was able to get past pole sitter Jake Hughes shortly after the second race of the Shanghai E-Prix doubleheader weekend got underway. Was able to hold off the field, claims win number 2 off the year, holds off a late charge from Jake Hughes, who was trying to get back out front. Da Costa, Hughes 1-2, Norman Nato claiming 3rd, Nick Cassidy 4th, and Mitch Evans 5th. The rest of your top 10, Stoffel Van Dorn, Jean-Eric Verne, Max Gunther, Robin Freins, and Oliver Rowland. Nick Cassidy's your points leader over Pascal Wehrlein by a margin of 167 to 142. Mitch Evans got 132. Oliver Rowland 131. Jake Dennis holding 113. It's pretty much amongst the top 5. It's really amongst the top 2 when it comes to the team standings, but I'll go ahead and mention them all. Jaguar 299 points. Tag Heuer Porsche 226. Nissan's got 157, DS Penske's got 154, Andretti 153, so that's a nice tight race there. Then you got McLaren with 89, 77 for Maserati. You drop down again to Envision with 49, then down to 23 for ERT, 20 for ABT Cupra. Mahindra seems to have woken up a little bit. They've scored points over the last couple of race weekends. They now hold 13. They're still in the basement. Porsche, by the way, leads the manufacturer standings, 337 points to Jaguar's 328. Nissan's got 236. Stellantis holding 213. Mahindra, I should say, is up to 33, and they jump over ERT to get out of the cellar. ERT's got 23. And that turns us around to Formula One, who they've been kind of thinking about how to make the racing at their centerpiece race of the year, Monaco, a little bit better. Because if you think about it, due to the city's layout, it's very highly unlikely that they're going to be able to widen the roads. Let's face it, the historic track, been there for a very long time, and, well, the way that the city has been built around it, there's just no room to widen out a road. So that is actually leaving Formula One officials to consider downsizing the cars. The potential need for it kind of got proven out last Sunday morning. Think about it this way. Last year, Formula One celebrated 70 years. That means they're in their 71st year. Mm-hmm. For the first time in 71 years of F1 history, the way that the teams started in the top 10 was exactly the way that the teams finished in the top 10. A lot of people have been complaining about F1 being follow the leader.
And here you go.
It's kind of proof, isn't it? This is how they started, and as it turned out, finished. Charles Leclerc, pole sitter and winner. Oscar Piastri, Carlos Sainz, Lando Norris, George Russell, Max Verstappen, Sir Lewis Hamilton, Yuki Tsunoda, Alex Albon, and Pierre Gasly. Verstappen's 6th place start/finish closes the points lead up to 169 to 138 over Charles Leclerc. Lando Norris is now 3rd, 113 in the points for him. Carlos Sainz sits at 108. We'll get into why he's not getting points in a minute. Sergio Perez got 107. Next up, Oscar Piastri with 71. 54 for George Russell. Lewis Hamilton, 42. Ouch. Fernando Alonso, 33. Yuki Tsunoda sits 10th in points with a grand total of 19. Constructors' Cup standing still ruled by Red Bull, 276, but Ferrari closes in a bit with 252. Then you got McLaren with 184. Mercedes just shy of triple digits, holding 96, 44 for Aston Martin, 24 for VCarb, Haas F1 with 7, Williams and now Alpine 2 points apiece. Yep, Alpine actually scored points last race. And Sauber, they remain scoreless on the year. Well, it may have been delayed 4 hours, but then we turn to the crown jewel race, really, of the world, the Indy 500. Once things got underway, it was very exciting. Going into the final lap, Pato O'Ward had a great run to the white flag. He got around last year's Indy 500 winner, Joseph Newgarden, as they went into turn 1. But Newgarden then began to rally back as they got onto the backstretch, and he used a move. Gutsy move, man. Intestinal fortitude. Let's talk about it. Newgarden going to the outside in turn 3 and made it stick in a Days of Thunder kind of move. Gets back around O'Ward, and he claims the win.
You can hold it.
Indeed, he could. He did indeed.
You go to the outside,
You can hold it. Yep. Newgarden did. With the win, now Newgarden becomes only the 6th driver to win back-to-back Indy 500s in its history, leaving Pato O'Ward to think what might have been in second place. Scott Dixon 3rd, Alexander Rossi 4th. Alex Palou was 5th. Your pole sitter, Scott McLaughlin, faded to 6th. He was trailed by Kyle Kirkwood, Santino Ferrucci, Renus VK, and Connor Daly. For the record, the man attempting the double that didn't happen, Kyle Larson, he did lead 4 laps, but a fuel stop late in the race relegated him to 18th. Would have been interesting to have seen what he might have been able to do had he been on everybody else's.
Well, he had that speeding penalty, too.
Yeah, that didn't help either.
No.
Updated standings when it comes to IndyCar. Alex Palou out front, 183. Scott Dixon's got 163. Will Power, 157. Pato O'Ward's up to 134, tied with Colton Herta in the top 5. Rookie standings, Linus Lundqvist has 73. 70 for Kiffin Simpson. Christian Rasmussen has 50. Tom Blomqvist has 46. We'll get back to him in a bit. And Teo Pourchaire, who did not race in the Indy 500 but will race the rest of the year, has 38. And as far as the manufacturer points are concerned, Chevrolet has overtaken Honda in that run, 408 to 386. And then it was up to the Cup Series. Now, remember, we said the Indy 500 was delayed 4 hours due to rain, and Rick Hendrick and Zach Brown from Arrow McLaren and Kyle Larson and Jeff Gordon and everybody else involved between Hendrick Motorsports and Arrow McLaren, they all decided they were going to keep Kyle Larson in Indy. Kind of a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, despite the fact that Kyle Larson actually has a 2-year contract. Apparently, that 2-year contract is somewhat open-ended because it doesn't lock him into having to do it again next year. So we'll see how all that works. But they decided either way to keep Kyle Larson in Indy, so the Cup Series, NASCAR said, well, let's just go ahead and get this thing running. We're not going to wait for him, which was a smart move. Much like Indy things in Charlotte, we got interrupted by rain, but again, the race got past the stage 2 break and the halfway point on laps, so that allowed them to determine that it was finished, making it effectively the Coca-Cola 375 when they said the track wasn't drying quickly enough. We'll get back to that. When NASCAR made it official, Christopher Bell was your leader. He was trailed in the top 10 by Brad Keselowski, then William Byron, Tyler Reddick, Denny Hamlin, Ty Gibbs, Chase Elliott, Ross Chastain, Alex Bowman, and Josh Berry making up the top 10. Bell, not a new winner. So the seed order now looks like this. Denny Hamlin and William Byron on top with 3 wins each. 2 wins for Larson and Bell. Single wins for Chase Elliott, Tyler Reddick, Brad Keselowski, and Daniel Suarez have them all locked in to the playoffs. Those who are in on points right now, producer John's favorite driver, Martin Truex Jr., leads them. Then you got Ty Gibbs, Alex Bowman, Ross Chastain, Ryan Blaney, Bubba Wallace back in, Kyle Busch, and Chris Buescher. Buescher is holding an 11-point lead over Chase Briscoe for that final playoff position in the Cup Series. So that brings us to this weekend, and it's another busy weekend, I'll tell you that. Begins later today with the Craftsman Truck Series. They're running the Toyota 200 at Worldwide Tech Raceway at Gateway. That'll be on Fox, the main network. Get that. And MRN Radio beginning 1:30 p.m. Eastern, 12:30 p.m. Central Time. Then later today, all the way out onto the left coast, the Xfinity Series taken to the Portland International Raceway for the Pacific Office Automation 147. Yeah, 147. It's on a road course. 75 laps, if you're curious. 12 turns, 1.97 miles long. Fox Sports 1 and MRN Radio have the coverage 4:30 p.m. Eastern, 3:30 p.m. Central Time. That'll turn us over to Sunday, where Indycar is going to run the Chevrolet Detroit Grand Prix on USA and the IRN Radio Network. That starts at noon Eastern, 11 a.m. Central Time. It's a street course in downtown Detroit made up of 9 turns over 1.645 miles, and a lot of work got done to that. We detailed that earlier on this year. Should be interesting to see how bumpy and rough that course is compared to what it was last year, because it looked like they were hopping all over the place last year.
I seen a few clips of practice last night, and it looks better.
Does? Okay.
It appears to be better.
Good. Shortly after that, eliminations in the NHRA. New England National is going to get rolling in Epping, New Hampshire on New England Dragway. Finals will get rolling just before 3 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Central Time. Not going to get on television until Fox Sports 1 gets around to them at 7 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Central Time, just to let you know. And that's because the Cup Series gets into action on Worldwide Tech Raceway at Gateway to enjoy Illinois 300. Remember how I said that the Craftsman Truck Series was on Fox later today? Mm-hmm. Somehow the Cup Series ends up on Fox Sports 1.
Isn't that backwards?
One would think.
Yeah.
3:30 p.m. Eastern, 2:30 p.m. Central Time. Formula One, Formula E. They're off this weekend.
Well.
All right. For those of you wondering what big news happened this week,
the driver's polished.
Did you have your head in the sand? Now, I will say this. If Mother Nature hadn't intervened, almost undoubtedly the biggest story of the week would have been Kyle Larson doing the double. Because we all would have been curious. Had he been able to finish on the lead lap and been only the second driver to do it after Tony Stewart did it in 2001 when he finished in the top 10 and all the laps in the Indy 500, finished in the top 10 and all the laps in the Coca-Cola 600. And if he could have, which as it turned out he did finish on the lead lap in the Indy 500, but he finished 18th in the Indy 500, so that automatically means probably not going to be better than Tony unless he goes down to the Coca-Cola 600 and wins. Well, here's the deal. Again, they kept him in Indianapolis, 4-hour delay. He still jumps on a plane less than 20 minutes after getting out of the Indy 500 car, doing all the post-race interviews. He's on a plane in less than 20 minutes. Pretty rapid fire.
Very.
Fly down to Charlotte, helicopter from the airport to Charlotte Motor Speedway, golf cart as close as you can get to pit road, then run, get yourself your Hans device on, and right as your Hans device is put on, it rains. He didn't even get in the Cup Series car.
They drove him right to the back of the pit box.
Yeah. But he never got in the car, unfortunately for him, to go racing.
Darn humidity.
I know.
Gosh almighty.
So, either way, it was a dud due to Mother Nature and, well, NASCAR. But here's the thing.
And Fox.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In the long run, I would say probably he would have had to have won that Coca-Cola 600, which, according to Justin Allgaier, who was driving the car and started the race in the Coca-Cola 600,
he would have had a legitimate shot.
He honestly felt like Kyle Larson had a legitimate shot at winning that race. But when you're shutting down a 2-time Cup championship winning organization, you're going to have to go a long way. And we have been dealing with these rumors pretty much all season long. Tuesday afternoon, after a meeting with the employees at the shop, Tony Stewart, Gene Haas announced formally that at the end of the 2024 season, Stewart Haas Racing is going to shutter the NASCAR operations and they will be no more. Now, for a moment here, I'm going to take off the journalist/media person hat, and I'm going to put on the fan hat. And I said this during our podcast, Crossed Flags, on Wednesday. This sucks.
And then some.
I've said this flat out, and I've made no bones about my fandom of whoever I'm a fan of. And I've been a fan of Tony Stewart since his rookie year of 1999.
I have to agree. This sucks.
This flat sucks. We'll get into the whys beyond what they said here in just a minute. Here we go. Back onto the media/journalist hat. As you can see now on CRN Live on YouTube, SHR put out a statement on their social media that was 6 paragraphs long. If you checked out the Cross Flags podcast from Wednesday, this is going to sound a bit familiar. I'm only going to read the first 3, which should give you the solid foundation for the reasons why they are shutting down. Quote, "We have made the difficult decision to close Stewart-Haas Racing at the conclusion of the 2024 season. It's a decision that did not come easily, nor was it made quickly. Racing is a labor-intensive, humbling sport, requires unwavering commitment and vast resources. With a 365-day mindset to be better than everyone else, it's part of what makes success so rewarding. But the commitment needed to extract maximum performance while providing sustainability is incredibly demanding, and we've reached a point in our respective personal and business lives where it's time to pass the torch." Producer John's going to leave the rest of the statement up there for you so you can read it as you wish. The statement ended by the owners saying that they were going to continue to strive to win races and even titles this year. And we say titles because obviously not only do they have the 4 Cup Series organization cars, they've got the 2 Xfinity Series organization cars. But at the same time, they're also going to work to find future employment for all of the employees of the team beyond this season. So that's where we're going to go in this part of the story here. Now, to this point in the season, the team can brag about their accomplishments that include wins in the Cup Series by Chase Briscoe, Cole Custer, Eric Almirola, Clint Boyer, Ryan Newman, Kurt Busch, Tony Stewart, and Kevin Harvick, going from the least number of wins to the most, total of 69 wins in Cup Series action when combined together. And if you go all the way back to when it started off in 2002 as Haas CNC Racing, across the top 3 divisions of Cup, Xfinity, and Trucks, because they actually do, back before it was Stewart-Haas Racing, have a Truck Series win, the organization has 98 wins across NASCAR's top 3 series as of right now. And that could change between now and the end of the year. And I think it probably will. And there's a reason why.
Yep.
Because news like this tends to have one of 2 reactions for the people that are affected. In other words, your boss comes to your company and says, "We're closing down. We've got time, but we're closing down." One of 2 things is going to happen. The morale of the team is either going to go right down the tubes, the pipes, the sewer, whatever you want to call it, trying to stay family oriented, or everybody here is going to get galvanized and go, "We're going to go out with a bang." And knowing the 6 drivers, not personally, but knowing of the 6 drivers, knowing of the 6 crew chiefs, knowing of the pit crews and the spotters and all the rest of the employees that a Stewart-Haas Racing would have, I honestly think and believe in my heart, and this is not the fan that is saying this. This is the media person who honestly believes that something like this, with as much as Gene and Tony have put into this team over the years since 2009, that this is going to galvanize in them a desire to want to go out with wins. Now, will it happen? I don't know. I think it's more likely on the Xfinity Series side, with all due respect, but I'm not going to put it past the Cup side because I see sparks, a lot of them out of the 10 car. I think Noah Gragson's got a really good chance at it.
I'm not going to say the 4 car doesn't either.
And I was about to say, Chase Briscoe and Josh Berry, we've seen them around the top 10 quite a bit here in the first half of the year so far, too.
Yep.
Ryan Preece is your question mark. But he has been since he was brought in. And that's no disrespect to Ryan Preece's ability on a short track, but he hasn't really proven himself on anything bigger than that or a road course. So I honestly believe, as a media person / journalist, taking the fan hat off, I believe that this team will not just fold and quit because they know at the end of the year they're not going to be at SHR anymore, or there won't even be an SHR anymore. And you and I talked about this a little bit on Crossed Flags as well, and we're going to go ahead and mention it here real quick. We're hearing a lot of rumors out there about who may go where. Well, first things first, we got those 4 charters to deal with. And what we do know is that on Wednesday, we heard 2 things. First, that reports claim that NASCAR has sent the latest charter proposal to all the Cup Series organizations for their review. Now, what's in there is pure speculation because nobody's talking, and we won't speculate beyond what we talked about a couple of weeks ago about what most think is in it. One of those things, though, is that there is the thought that other than being the ones grandfathered in, Joe Gibbs Racing and Hendrick Motorsports, teams are about to be limited to 3 charters, which I think is stupid, personally.
Yeah.
I have no problem with you limiting it at 4. I don't know why you're limiting it at 3. We also know that Stewart Haas Racing is not seeking Live Fast Motorsports kind of charter money. Remember last year, Live Fast sold their sole charter to Aspire for a reported $40 million? We'll talk about what Stewart Haas Racing did with another Ford team from one of those charters when we come back, because trust me, there's a lot of digging we got to do on this particular story.
We will be right back with more on the Championship Racing Network. Two tires only, and back out to the track for more action on the Championship Racing Network.
Welcome back in. Steve West, Matt Nicholson, producer John Myers talking about the fallout from the announcement on Wednesday, or Tuesday really, of Stewart Haas Racing saying that they were going to be shutting down. We talked about Wednesday how one of the charters got spoken for quickly And again, shortly afterward, again, NASCAR had sent the charter renewal proposal to the teams. Front Row Motorsports announced they were purchasing that one of those charters, third charter for 2024, presumably becoming a 3-car operation with the numbers 34, 36, and 38.
Yep.
Although I don't think that was officially announced, that seems to be the logical conclusion because that's what they've used.
Yeah, it wasn't.
Okay. Now, keep this in mind also when it comes to Front Row Motorsports. They're losing Michael McDowell to the aforementioned Spire Motorsports for 2025. So they're planning on 3 rides, and right now have only 1 driver from what we understand. And from what we understand, Gilliland's on a 1-year deal this year, so that may not be set in stone either. But I get the funny feeling Todd Gilliland will be back. And we'll go on that presumption.
I don't see any reason why he shouldn't.
So that means that Front Row Motorsports has 2 cars. No waiting. This is where, again, these are rumors. These are all just things that are going around. We don't know for certain at this point in time who's going where because nobody's been signed. Now, presumably, all of the drivers at Stewart-Haas Racing have been, as of the day after championship weekend at Phoenix at the end of the year in November, it's been set up to where all the drivers have their contracts released from Stewart-Haas Racing.
Mm-hmm.
Presumably. So that's 6 drivers. It's kind of more seats than are available, though. Certainly in the Cup Series.
All things considering, with the money that he can bring behind him, and he's done it before, I could legitimately see Riley Earps going to that 36.
Mm-hmm.
Because
he's definitely solid with Monster Energy.
He was looking at the checkerboard in the air at Talladega last year.
Yeah, he was.
Coming off of 4 in that 36 car.
Yeah, he was. And like we said, he's got the backing of Monster Energy. We know that Ty Gibbs does as well, but Monster Energy's got some money to throw around, and they've been more than happy to back both Ty and Riley.
They're on the Bass Pro Shops level of throwing money around.
Yeah, exactly.
But
speaking of
that 34 car,
could they take 2 Stewart-Haas Racing drivers?
I could see it happening.
Who do you think else might go?
If he wants to make the step back up, and I'm pretty sure it's more that loves travel stops, has got a more with Bob Jenkins in the team than they do the driver. I wouldn't be overly shocked if Cole Custer goes to the 34.
So that's 2 Xfinity Series drivers jumping up to the Cup Series.
I feel like Chase Briscoe is going to go to the 21.
We've been hearing a lot of that. More and more people have been saying that the Wood Brothers / Team Penske side of things would be more than happy to pick up Chase Briscoe.
There's a lot more fire than smoke there.
Yeah. Noah Gragson seems like a lock to get a seat. The question is where?
Yeah. And I could see some validity to this happening because of the basis of this past week that Dale Jr. has filed for and gotten the licensing rights back to the number 8.
Yep.
So
yeah, Teresa Earnhardt let the DEI situations all lapse, and Dale Jr. smartly jumped right on it.
Got the number 8 back. Supposedly, she still got the number 1. That number, style font. But in regards to the number 8, and this is whether it comes to pass or not, but it seems to be gaining some steam. Seems to be that Dale Jr. and Tony Stewart may link up together, and that is a very large may, and revive DEI with Gragson and Barry, 8 and 88 respectively.
It would be
back in
interesting.
Chevrolet. Be back within Chevrolet.
It would be interesting. It really would. Because here's what we know. Again, Front Row Motorsports has spoken for one of the 4 charters. That leaves 3 outstanding. Now, we've heard a lot of rumors that 2311, not 23 by 1, wants one of them. We've heard a lot of rumors about Trackhouse Racing wanting one. And Trackhouse really kind of needs one if you look at their situation. Because they've got a couple of drivers out there who are effectively waiting for a ride that has no guarantee. Now, we think SVG probably will end up full-time. I don't know. Do you think Xfinity, or do you think he would go full-time Cup and be lent?
I'm going to say depending how he finishes out the Xfinity year, to which these next 2 weekends, I'm going to say is hands down his largest, biggest, whatever word you want to use to describe a huge opportunity.
Yeah.
Large, big, huge, giant, whatever.
Let's put it this way. This is his chance to be staring at an open door. And the question is, does he walk through it?
I think he's going to walk through it probably today.
He may run through it.
I think he's going to do it today and get himself into the playoffs firmly. And dare I say, considering he's been to Sonoma and tested the Chevrolet Wheel Force Cup car, so he knows the track already. And Xfinity goes there for the first time ever next weekend. Dare I say he could launch and catapult himself to being the top seed in the playoffs.
Because, in a 2-week period?
Because with these ovals, there is nobody that can tell me that he hasn't been very respectable and very solid going into these tracks sight unseen.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he's acquitting himself nicely for a guy who has
extremely little
to no experience on oval tracks and has had really no opportunity to see these tracks before he gets out there to go practice/qualifying, which are now all in the same session, really.
Yeah, and
so
I'll throw everything I got on at Las Vegas. It'll be between him and Allmendinger today.
Okay.
It'll be a knockdown drag out between them two today.
So here's the situation anyway. When it comes to Trackhouse, okay, they've already lent to Spire
Zane Smith,
a driver, Zane Smith. Got to figure out what you're going to do with him. Because we know that Michael McDowell is going to be taking the seat that Zane Smith is currently running.
The question would be with Trackhouse, and this is where I think Justin Marks is in a conundrum. Let's word it that way. Awfully big word to use at 8:31 a.m.
and you used it right. Congratulations.
Conundrum. You got Shane Van Gisbergen, who is holding himself as very formidable.
Yes.
Is he perfect? No. Is he consistent? Yes. You got Zane Smith. He's been mediocre for these first 14 races at best. Is it his fault? No.
Not totally no, but in practically the same equipment, his fellow rookie Carson Hocevar seems to be doing better.
Agreed. But last year, Carson Hocevar got more Cup seat time than Zane Smith got.
Also true.
That is true.
Also true.
So I could see more than likely Trackhouse gets that third charter and they're still wanting to pull up Van Gisbergen. I could see Zane Smith taking charter number 3 with Trackhouse banner. And I could see, because they've already got a working relationship, whether you can believe it or not, they work together very closely. Gisbergen going to the 16 car and taking it back, having a full-time driver instead of it being an all-star car, which is the stupidest thing I've ever seen with Matt Colley. He could be full-time in the 16 car. He's up in Cup. So you're taking 2 dominoes right there and knocking that out of the way.
Yeah.
And
Cowlick really doesn't have to worry. Not that Matt Cowlick is hurting for money, by the way, but Cowlick doesn't have to worry about it because Trackhouse would be paying Shane Van Gisbergen's salary for most of the way.
Right. And then
so it's really kind of a win-win for Matt Cowlick.
Yeah, I would say the one domino left out of this whole deal already so far, I'm going to say it's probably going to be Ryan Preece.
Mm-hmm.
Because
Ryan Preece is out there. Noah Gragson's out there. We haven't really heard many rumors about either one of them. We haven't really heard a whole lot of rumors about Josh Berry either. The one rumor that we've heard about Josh Berry is this. Rodney Childers
is going to go with him.
Wants to remain paired with Josh Berry wherever they go, be it Chevy, Ford, or Toyota. We also know that Noah Gragson and Drew Blickensderfer would like to do the same thing. And that's not a bad package deal for anybody because either one of those crew chief driver combinations would be a nice pull.
Yeah.
Okay.
I agree.
Let's assume for a minute that Tony Stewart isn't so fed up with NASCAR that he would be willing to trade Gene Haas for Dale Jr. for a partner.
And quite honestly, Earnhardt Jr. is going to be your better partner.
Maybe so, but we're presuming the bigger part of it to me is that Tony Stewart's not so fed up with NASCAR that he'd be willing to stick around. And I'm not so certain of that.
Yeah, because you got Chevrolet in play there.
So if you got presumably your first choice amongst 6 drivers, who are you keeping?
If I had to, if I'm a team owner, and I know I've got 6 drivers out of Stewart-Haas in play, here's how I would rank them in order of pull that I would want to go after. First and last being, I would think about calling him 3 weeks after I finished up the last seat. And I'm going 4-car team. First one I'm going after is Chase Briscoe.
Okay.
I'm going to put Chase Briscoe's 1. 2's going to be Noah Gragson.
Okay.
3's going to be Cole Custer.
Josh Berry sliding down further than what I thought.
Berry's going to be 4.
Okay. And that'll leave Riley Herbst and Ryan Preece.
Riley Herbst, I would leave in Xfinity for 1 more year to let him get a little more seasoning in him, in which he's progressed light years, if you ask me, from where he was to where he currently is.
I would agree. He still does some things that make you kind of go, but he's having less of those moments.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
All right. Well, we'll see. Again, there's still a long way to go here. Front row's got a charter. We know that. They won't say where they got it from, but let's face it. You start connecting dots, it's Stewart-Haas. That leaves 3 other charters to be sold. Word is that they're not seeking the $40 million that Spire got, or spent, I should say, for the Live Fast. We're hearing anywhere from about 20 to 25 million, which is still not an insignificant amount of money. Because you sell 4 at 20 to 25 million, that's 80 to 100 million dollars split. It's not a bad bargain. Plus, you got to deal with the buildings, because there are 2. And yeah, one of them technically does say Haas F1 on it. But from what we can tell, not a whole lot of Formula One activity has been going on out of that particular shop, right next door to the Stewart-Haas Racing headquarters there in
Kannapolis.
Thank you. Mooresville was the name that came to my head, and I knew
I
knew it wasn't it. So you got the 2 buildings sitting side by side. Reportedly, the Xfinity Series duo of Cole Custer and Riley Herbst have been using that building more than F1 maybe ever had. So you got to figure out what to do with the building. You got to figure out what to do with all the equipment in the building.
I think that's more the F1 executive building than it is the mechanical building.
Oh, yeah, because most of your mechanical stuff is going on out of Britain and Italy anyway. So there's still a long way to go here, and there's still a lot of rumors. And there's going to be a lot of rumors and a lot of speculation until people actually start talking, as opposed to being cryptic. Here's what's set in stone. Front Row Motorsports said that they have extended their relationship with Ford Performance, created a long-term competition alliance with Team Penske. General Manager Jerry Freese added this, quote, "It's good to get the news out now as we have a lot of work to do to prepare for our new 3rd team." Starting a new team from scratch is always a challenge, but with the opportunities in front of us, the talent we have in our leadership, and a bit of runway to get there, I'm confident we can produce 3 competitive programs out of the box in 2025. And here's the deal. If you're looking for some cars and parts, well, maybe call SHR because, once the season ends, they'll have a surplus. This is, it's not a dagger, but it's certainly something that bloodies Ford. It bloodies their nose. Because if you think about it, Stewart-Haas Racing has 4 Ford cars in Cup and 2 in Xfinity. Now, in the Cup side, yeah, that can be made up somewhat. You're probably still going to take a loss, whether Tony pairs with Dale Jr. or whether it's bought by 2311 and Trackhouse and somebody else. You're down 2 guaranteed. And guess what? You're losing 2 Ford Xfinity teams. And there ain't that many of them.
We will be right back with more on the Championship Racing Network. Fuel only. Go, go, go. We're back to the Championship Racing Network.
If you want to hear more, by the way, on us talking about the whole deal with SHR, go back and check out Cross Flags. The episode is episode 13, how appropriate, and it's entitled Requiem for a Team. We invite you to go do that. Anyway, it comes down pretty much every Wednesday, barring unforeseen circumstances. So please do so. Let's get back to the idea of Kyle Larson doing the double. We understand that he and Hendrick Motorsports have indeed signed a 2-year deal to continue with Arrow McLaren. And again, it kind of open-ended, not necessarily for next year. It would seem likely, but again, maybe not. And with all the drivers who have attempted it so far being Cup Series drivers going to Indy, we're talking John Andretti, Tony Stewart, Robbie Gordon. All three of them did have open-wheel experience going into that. And then there was Kurt Busch, who actually acquitted himself quite nicely, finishing inside the top 10. They all did it, though, before Kyle Larson attempted it this year, and we've been wondering, and I don't even know how long we've been wondering on this show.
Been a while.
In its various forms, about an IndyCar driver trying to do it the double by going and trying to qualify for the Coca-Cola 600. Now, for a time, it did seem like the most likely team that would allow that to happen might have been Chip Ganassi Racing, but when they sold out, well, that kind of nixed that idea. So who's the other team that competes in both series? Team Penske. In doing the tour of media outlets that the Indy 500 winners do, Joseph Newgarden got asked about Larson and his attempt, and then would he, Joseph Newgarden, consider it? Newgarden talked to media Tuesday and said, quote, "I want to, so bad. I want to terribly badly. It's not just a me thing. I think if you ask a lot of the drivers in the field, they would all relish the opportunity to do the double. Believe me, everybody was very enthusiastic and happy that Kyle was there. And we all want Kyle to come back. Kyle definitely saw the magic of what Indianapolis is all about, and I think that he wants to be a part of it for sure. We want to go the other way. I love NASCAR racing too. I want to go run the double, and I think there's some IndyCar representatives to show the other way around on it, and I think it would be really fun."
He would be one I could see being successful.
Yeah. This is one of those things where you need a driver who is uniquely able to adapt themselves to multiple kinds of cars.
Mm-hmm.
And I could say that Joseph Newgarden, based upon what I have seen of his ability to adapt to his conditions and his situations, is one of those drivers. And Team Penske's got the other one that we think is probably very highly thought of on that list. And you mentioned him during the Cross Flags podcast. That
would be one Scott McLaughlin.
You think about it. Scott is Shane Van Gisbergen. He came to the United States from Australian supercars.
Scott McLaughlin at one time was eating Shane Van Gisbergen's lunch.
Yep.
And I'm not kidding on that.
No, not at all. Scott McLaughlin was handing everything on the planet into the arms of Shane Van Gisbergen and beating him soundly. So there's another sub-story. It's not only the fact that you got a couple of IndyCar drivers, at least one, who could go over there and get in, and we know that according to NASCAR rules, Team Penske could put a fourth car out there. Now, you wouldn't have a charter on it, but you could put a fourth car out there and attempt to qualify it. And if he happened to qualify on speed, that car's in.
Which I think he would be okay doing.
Absolutely. And I think Joseph Newgarden could do it probably almost as well. Because, again, there is a learning curve to go to stock cars. Joseph Newgarden's been an open-wheel driver pretty much all of his life. That's something that Scott McLaughlin doesn't have to say.
The only one thing that would, with the Penske deal, and the reason I say this is because I know how picky Chevrolet is.
Or can be.
Or General Motors is.
Yeah.
Is going from Chevrolet to Ford crossover doing a double.
But you and I said this on Cross Flags. If there is one team owner out there that can smooth that over, it'd be the captain.
That would be him for sure. I mean, because the last two doubles that were done, Tony Stewart and Kurt Busch, you had Tony Stewart going from Honda to Pontiac.
Mm-hmm.
Kurt Busch, you had going from Honda to Ford.
Yep.
Honda to Ford is not all that big of a deal, but we know how Jim Campbell and Chevrolet can be. This double, Chevy to Chevy. So no issue there.
Right.
So
we'll see. Time will tell. I mean, sooner or later it's got to happen, though. I mean, as much fun as it is to talk about the double, the fact that it has been very one-sided to see Cup Series drivers going up and running the Indy 500, at some point in time, we need to see that pipeline flow the other way.
I honestly would, next 20 and 25, I wouldn't be overly surprised if you've seen multiple.
I'd love to see it. I'd love to see it. Absolutely.
Larson and Busch.
Yeah.
And maybe one or two Indy crossing over.
Yeah. And, you know, we keep hearing that Ryan Blaney has been expressing a whole lot of interest. Again, you're involving the captain.
Yeah.
We'd have to see exactly how much Mr. Penske would be interested in allowing it to happen. And, again, the crossover between the two marks. But we'll find out. Time will tell.
Mm-hmm.
One other note here in the Cup Series, and that is Beard Motorsports. They've announced their next driver for their next race. Now, remember, this is the part-time team that is only running the super speedways. They're only running at Daytona, Talladega, and Atlanta. In those 6 races, they have not set one driver for all 6. So what they're going to do on Daytona on August the 24th in the Coke Zero 400 under the lights is put 21-year-old Parker Retzlaff in the car. That driver is going to be making his Cup Series debut at Daytona under the lights. He's been running Xfinity since 2022. He's full-time with Jordan Anderson Racing this year. In his 54 career Xfinity starts, 3 top 5 and 11 top 10 finishes. Parker Retzlaff's resume give you any confidence that he's going to do very well with this car? I mean, we've seen the Beard Motorsports car, and it is not a backmarker by and large.
Yeah, I mean, it's prepared by RCR. And
Yeah.
RCR always, I mean, whether you think they do or not, they always have very respectable, fast super speedway cars.
So this is going to be a good car that Parker's going to get in.
And you got to make the most of it.
21 years old, 54 races, handful of top 5s.
Well, time will tell. Good luck.
At this point in time, do you take the old rookie goal of finish on the lead lap and keep the car clean?
I would say the rookie goal of finish with 4 fenders on the car, especially at Daytona.
Because it is Daytona. I agree. All right, let's turn our attention over to the IndyCar series. And it might have been delayed by 4 hours, but it didn't stop people from checking it out. Talk about the greatest spectacle in motorsports, the Indy 500. In fact, there is an argument to state, because of how early the Indy 500 actually did begin, if it had been good weather, that it might have actually helped.
I'm sure.
The ratings of the Indy 500.
I'm sure.
Pulled down its biggest ratings in 3 years, pulled in an average of 5.43 million viewers across all the NBC platforms during the race. That's an 8% increase from last year, 10% better than the 2022 viewership numbers. Reports showed that at the end of the race, viewership numbers were at its highest, 6.46 million. Now, over the last, give or take, decade or so, we've seen as high as somewhere around 8 to 8.5 million. So it's still not quite back at its peak, but it is coming back. Now, again, 2 things likely help. Number 1, the delay. Number 2, the drama of the potential Kyle Larson double. And we'll give you this third one. A little bit of late race drama. As we noted in the recap, very exciting last lap. And here's one other part. Sports Business Journal reports that the rain delay also opened up the window for the race to be shown live in Indianapolis. There is a deal between Indianapolis Motor Speedway and the NBC affiliate in the city that states you can put it on the same day that we run it, but you have to be delayed. Because even though, despite selling out more often than not, they want to ensure that the people go to the race. But that window opened up. Television got it live. That's only the 4th time that that's happened since 1950.
Why do I get the feeling that this is something that NASCAR may try to get packed house?
Maybe. I don't know. Difficult to say. I mean, the NFL's done it for years. Well, all the major stick and ball sports, they've done it for years. They've got the local blackout in effect. If you don't sell out your local market, football, baseball, basketball, hockey, doesn't matter. If you don't sell out your local market, if it was slated to be on television in that market, you ain't going to get it. And you won't get it for, depending on the sport, 100 to 150 miles around. And I say that to say this. The city of Birmingham, or the market, the television market of the city for Birmingham, is within that 150-mile radius of Atlanta. A couple of years ago, Matt and I went over to see a Thursday night game between the Atlanta Falcons and the New England Patriots. And you've all seen the Mercedes-Benz Dome in, or whatever they're calling it now, in downtown Atlanta. Because it's been on TV many, many times through many, many different sports, national championships games, or SEC championship games, or college football playoffs, or Super Bowls, or whatever. It's not a small place. Seats.
Nope.
What, 75, 80,000?
Like 78.
78,000? Okay, so we'll say 80,000 just to make the numbers round up. If that stadium on that Thursday night game, the only NFL game going on, right?
Mm-hmm.
Thursday night game, if that stadium was 2/3 full, I'd be shocked.
I would say there was probably, I'm going to say 50 to 52,000 there, at least.
Okay.
That night.
Ish. 2/3, maybe not quite. And of the people that were there, I would say about 75% of them were Patriots fans. Because we saw the jerseys.
Correct.
We were looking around.
The Mundo, especially in section 328. Ring a bell.
Now, if that game had not been on Amazon Prime, if that game had been assigned to Fox or CBS or NBC, it wouldn't have been shown live in Atlanta. And because Birmingham was within the 150-mile radius market-wise, Birmingham wouldn't have gotten it live either.
Nope. It would not have.
Go ask people in Jacksonville, Florida about that. Just a couple of years ago, they had a hard time selling out the Jacksonville Jaguars, and they were blacked out in their own city. It's not an uncommon thing. But racing has, for the most part, other than this deal between the Indy 500 and the city of Indianapolis, racing has pretty much stayed away from it.
They have.
I hope that continues.
Mm-hmm.
Because, and I'll say this on a personal, somewhat selfish note, in thinking about our home track, which is, 20 miles away from here? Ish? Give or take.
Yeah, give or take.
Talladega, we've long had the phrase, it's more than a race. This is Talladega. And there's a reason for that. It's a 3-day party. We haven't even stayed in the infield overnight. But I can guarantee you the infield is rocking the whole time.
Ooh. Yeah.
There's a reason why people come to Talladega is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
It's more than just going there for the race. It's the camaraderie. It's the atmosphere. It is everything. And most of the racetracks can say the same thing. So, no, I hope NASCAR does not follow this lead. Sincerely hope that they do not follow this lead.
Same.
But we'll find out. In the aftermath of this race, and you were talking about this, Honda engines showing some reliability problems leads to penalties for 2 drivers when it comes to motor use. IndyCar rules state that all customer teams get 4 engines a year with the ability to go about 10,000 miles or so. And if there's a need for a 5th engine or more, that's when penalties come in. This is somewhat similar to Formula One. Going to a 5th engine is considered by the IndyCar rule book a, quote, unapproved engine change, unquote. The driver that is affected suffers a 6 grid spot penalty post-qualifying at the next race. And there are 2 drivers that are going to get hit. Yep, 2 of them. Chip Ganassi Racing's rookie Kiffin Simpson and Rahal Letterman Lanigan Racing's Graham Rahal. And here's the other side of it. Since the 4-engine number was instituted not that terrifically long ago, Penalty is only 3 years old this year. This is the earliest that any team has gone through their allotted engines by over a month. The previous earliest was the first weekend in July. So something's up.
Well,
Something's going on.
with Indianapolis, I think it was an issue of they had the motors leaned a little bit too much out, leaned out a little bit too much, anticipating the weather being one thing, and it ended up completely changing to be completely different.
Yeah.
And they didn't make the adjustments in time, and because all three of the engine failures that I seen on television came out of the same side. Every single one of them had problems out of the same side on the right-hand side of the engine.
Not good.
So,
Something's up.
yeah.
Got to figure out what it is, get it fixed. Producer John, is it break time or we want to go deal with the next story? We want to go to break. All right. When we come back, we'll continue talking IndyCar here because not only are those changes coming when it comes to engines for those two drivers who, again, after qualifying later today, I guess,
Who?
IndyCar,
Yes.
they're going to go back 6 spots from where they qualified. By the way, for those of you that are curious, if they qualify so far back in the field that all 6 spots aren't assessed this time, that'll carry over. But there's a driver change coming too. We'll talk about it next.
Don't touch that dial. The Championship Racing Network will be right back. Four tires and 2 cans of fuel, and we're back to more racing action on the Championship Racing Network.
Welcome back into the show. If you missed hour 1, missed a lot. But We're here for hour 2, and we appreciate you joining us. And, of course, we're always out there on CRN Live on YouTube, so by all means, you can go back and check out hour 1, after we get done with hour 2. Meyer Shank Racing, as we're talking IndyCar here, not terrifically happy about how things are going on with their number 66 entry. It's not that they are the dregs of the IndyCar universe, but they think things might be able to be better, so they're going to find out whether it's the driver or the car. This weekend in Detroit and next week when they go to Road America, Rookie of the Year candidate Tom Blomqvist is out of the car. Elio Castroneves, the veteran, is going to be put in and see what might be going on. Mike Shank, team co-owner, said, quote, making this decision was by far the hardest one we've had to make. Tom is 100% still part of the MSR family and will remain a part of the team for the rest of the season. This decision was not made lightly, and after much discussion with Tom and with back-to-back races coming up, we've decided to have Elio drive in Detroit and at Road America. Blomqvist signed his multi-year deal with Meyer Shank Racing just before the 2024 season began, but at this time, even the team hasn't said what's going to happen after the Road America event. Should also be noted that Meyer Shank Racing is expected to rejoin IMSA, and that is where Blomqvist made his mark in racing. So this becomes the question of, is this basically the next step into getting him back into sports cars while keeping him with Meyer Shank Racing?
The way I understood this and the way I read it, and I'm pretty sure it was Marshall Pruitt that I read the article from, Blomqvist went to Michael Shank, and it was a mutual thing because he requested to step out to reevaluate himself.
Okay.
The way I understood it.
All right.
And if I'm an IndyCar rookie and I was facing a test at Michigan with a hybrid system in an open oval, I probably would step out too when you don't have much oval experience.
Mm-hmm.
Because granted, mistakes happen.
Sure.
But the mistake you made on lap 1 of the 500 took out some really good cars.
Yeah, it did. That it did. Dale Coyne Racing has decided to turn to a driver with IndyCar experience for this weekend's race in Detroit, even if the experience is a bit stale. His last race was just shy of 7 years ago. Only a few days shy of 7 years to be exact. That was the last time that Tristan Vautier was last racing in an IndyCar. But he did win the 2012 Indy Lights title, spent his rookie year with what is now Arrow McLaren, but he's been really out of the series since then. Mostly racing IMSA and other sports cars. It won't be him for all of the races the rest of the year in the number 51, co-owned with Rick Ware Racing, by the way. He's got too many conflicts between now and the end of the year. For example, the next week at Road America, where he can't be with Dale Coyne. But it is expected he'll probably get more starts in that 51 before the end of the year. At some point in time, though, Dale Coyne is in that situation, again, that we have talked about in the past. You're either going to have to fish or cut bait. Are you in when it comes to racing an IndyCar, or are you just dabbling? How serious are you? If you're serious, go find a driver who's going to stick with you for the whole year.
Correct.
And here's the odd thing about it, because we're in a very interesting position to actually praise Rick Ware Racing. We have seen that Dale Coyne Racing with Rick Ware Racing number 51 actually be a very good car.
Yeah. I mean, Romain Grosjean proved that a couple of years ago at Gateway. Or whatever. Gateway.
Are you serious about renting an IndyCar, Dale? Or are you just playing? Which one is it? But let it be known. Right now, it seems like you're playing, but you talk seriously.
Yeah, very much so. And speaking of IndyCar, it looks like we got a fight in practice in Detroit.
Uh-oh. What do we got?
Santino Ferrucci and Kyle Kirkwood fighting in practice.
As in fisticuffs, or are they battling each other on the track?
Fisticuffs.
Oops.
Well, he comes up.
Somebody got mad at somebody.
He comes up to the pit box to talk to him, and Santino Ferrucci was doing a debrief, and he jumps the wall and shoves him back and goes, "Get the
blank,
fill in the blank out of my way."
Okay, then. Wow.
Yeah.
We'll have to see.
Mm-hmm.
And remember something here: AJ Foyt Racing Santino Ferrucci specifically, they cut a deal, and a pretty good one for them, creating that technical alliance with Team Penske. And it's paid off. It's starting to pay off. Specifically for Ferrucci. Look at what he did last weekend at the Indy 500, and that's just the beginning. So this is a team that actually seems like they're serious once again about being highly, highly competitive. And they're taking the time to learn their lessons. And I'm talking about AJ Foyt, and it seems weird that we talk about an AJ Foyt not being highly competitive. Hey, this is the kind of fire that AJ wants. I mean, that's something that AJ himself would have done in his heyday.
And then some.
So now we know why Santino Ferrucci's there.
Yeah, no kidding.
Speaking of Team Penske, it's not a story that's really coming out of the Indycar arm of Team Penske either, but President Tim Cindric, while he wasn't able to go to Indy in May because of that suspension dating back to the push-to-pass scandal, Cindric was working behind the scenes and said he's been locking down the 3-driver lineup for 2025. So he's already telling us that Team Penske is going to remain a 3-car team next year. Tim Cindric, by the way, was at the Coca-Cola 600 in the Penske suite. So he was watching NASCAR, but said the whole time that it was on, I have the TV on the Indy 500. Mm-hmm. For those of you that are curious about changes at Team Penske for next year, Cindric told Racer.com, I'd be surprised if anything changes. So spoiler alert, don't expect it. There is one small hang-up. The team still has yet to sign, or re-sign, I should say, 33-year-old and now 2-time defending champion of the Indy 500, Joseph Newgarden, who is in the final year of his deal. If and when that will happen, it will mark the return of Newgarden, Will Power, and Scott McLaughlin for 2025. And who wouldn't want that trio behind the wheels of their trio?
I would take it.
Absolutely. That turns us over to Formula One. ESPN is reporting that sources are telling them it seems very likely that Sergio Perez is going to be staying at Red Bull Racing, continuing to pair with Max Verstappen as we get past 2024. There has been question about that because Sergio Perez is one of those guys who is way overshadowed by Max Verstappen, is getting outperformed by Max Verstappen. But at the same time, the kid that they call Checo, not exactly what anybody would call not wanted. He would be
True.
a pretty prized driver on the open market if he does happen to get out. But if this is, as ESPN reports, it would take then one seat off the market. And that's probably the biggest domino to fall because if you remember, we were talking about this last week, Carlos Sainz would then be able to begin his search for 2025 in earnest because he stated he was waiting to see what Red Bull's plans were before he made his decision. So if they're going to stick with Sergio, he's not going to VCARB. He's not going to the B team, the junior team over at Red Bull. It was either going to be pairing with Max Verstappen or I'm going elsewhere. So it looks like now he's got his chance to do that. So again, Red Bull presumed to be out. Primary options for Sainz appear to be either Sauber, soon to be Audi, or Williams, which, as we reported here last week, has expressed a big interest in bringing on Sainz to pair him with Alex Albon. There's also Haas F1, just to be real, but they do seem less likely to be a team who would be going after a Sainz, who probably would be asking more than what Haas F1 seems to be willing to pay their drivers. But then again, with Gene Haas leaving NASCAR, who knows? Maybe he's willing to put some more of that money towards a driver a little bit more expensive. I don't know. I mean, right now, from what we understand between Nico Hülkenberg and Kevin Magnussen, the last I heard, was being paid 1 million euros a year, which is not chump change. I get it. But at the same time, when you compare it to, say, Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton, who are both making about 50 million euros a year, you see that there is a big difference. Nico Hülkenberg might be getting paid more than that, but I'm not really going to guarantee it.
$1 million a year just to drive.
Just to drive. Welcome to Formula One, boys and girls.
Sign me up.
Yeah,
I know,
no
Komatsu. Sign me up.
There's also Alpine, who we've been talking about having a very unremarkable beginning to their year. And with all the changes that happened from 2023 to 2024, we kind of know why. And on top of that, now Alpine has turned around and fired their operations director, Rob White. They say, we decided to part ways with him. No, you fired him. He didn't quit because he would have come out and said, I quit. No, you, as the organization, said you decided to part ways with your operations manager. You fired him. He'd been with the team since 2016 in the role of ops director. Before that, he'd been the deputy head of the Renault Formula One engine department, having come over to Renault from Cosworth when that noted engine maker was one of F1's engine providers. So between that and what Esteban Ocon did at Monaco, more on that coming, things at Alpine, despite the fact that they actually scored points last weekend at Monaco, they're shaky at best. And I use that term at best very, very pointedly. Because the new team principal, Bruno Famine, who got rid of last year's team principal and caused the F1 CEO, Laurent Rossi, to quit before the end of the year last year, he just keeps taking more on himself. Bruno, I'm getting the funny feeling we found out your limitations. And your limitations are much, much more involved than what you can handle.
Amen, Reverend.
So we just noted the ratings for the Indy 500 were the biggest in 3 years. ABC is reporting that for this year's Monaco Grand Prix, which got started on time, brought in record numbers for them as well, specifically for this race. Remember, it got rolling early in the morning here in the United States, but it still averaged a high so far of 1.965 million viewers, peaking at 2.3 million as the race was winding down between 11:15 and 11:30 a.m. Eastern Time. Should also be noted, those are the third highest viewership numbers for Formula One in the U.S., behind only two races, this year's Miami Grand Prix and the 2022 version of the Miami Grand Prix. 1.965 million.
Not bad.
It's not the greatest on the planet either, because I've seen the ratings numbers for this week.
Mm-hmm.
It is indeed led by the Indy 500.
Mm-hmm.
North of 3.5 million was the Cup Series Coca-Cola 600. Sorry, Coca-Cola 375. Thank you, humidity.
373.5.
Close enough. 3.5 mil. Then you've got Formula One. Then you drop down to Xfinity and trucks. Xfinity about 1 million. Trucks, I want to say it was about 600,000. So I keep telling you, Formula One, there's room for you to grow. And I know how it can happen.
There is.
Edge Ready Global. Bingo. Monaco, as we kind of referenced, had two notable crashes. Let's deal with the second one first, the Esteban Ocon one that we talked about. Esteban Ocon got into Pierre Gasly at the start. Did you catch who I said he got into? Esteban Ocon got into Pierre Gasly. They're teammates. Oops. Caused Formula One officials to levy a 5 grid spot penalty on Ocon for the next race, meaning wherever he qualifies, he'll move back 5 positions when the race goes green. Initially, he was hit with a 10-second penalty for the Monaco race, but it got changed because Ocon's collision caused too much damage for the car for him to continue, so the better way to do the penalty was grid spots for the next race. The other crash was arguably a bigger one, but it happened much sooner in the race. Happened when Kevin Magnussen, remember that guy? Yeah, we'll get back to it. Was attempting to get around not only his Haas F1 teammate Nico Hülkenberg, but he had a run on the Red Bull of Sergio Perez, who had to start in the back of the field as well. Magnussen said Perez left him no room to maneuver, and that caused the collision. Perez, on the other hand, looking at it from the other side of the coin, said that it was on the trailing car, Magnussen, to yield, and he didn't, and is curious as to why race stewards didn't open an investigation into the crash, especially considering Magnussen is now 2 super license points away from getting a 1-race suspension. In other words, he's got something of a history. Should be noted, race stewards very rarely instigate an investigation into a wreck that happens as early as this one did, because the field, let's face it, they're on a standing start. They're really bunched up. Collisions like this, they're not that uncommon. You tend not to get investigations into it.
Especially at a tight racetrack like that.
Yeah. So, chalk it up to a racing incident, chalk it up to Magnussen being maybe a little bit overzealous, whatever you want to say. Either way, we know this. We know that Nico Hülkenberg is gone at the end of the year. He's already signed with Sauber, soon to be Audi. Mm-hmm. Kevin Magnussen may be on the hottest seat in all of Formula One, save Logan Sargent's. Because it really honestly seems like Williams has all but booted Logan Sargent out of that car. Mm-hmm. Again, they're interested in bringing on Carlos Sainz. They've made no bones about it. They've made it public all around the world. And that tells me that Logan Sargent is all but gone at the end of the year. So that's the hottest seat. Second hottest seat, got to belong to Kevin Magnussen. Because despite the fact that he's got a great history with the Haas F1 organization, sooner or later, you're going to have to realize maybe we could do better than the driver that we got. Mm-hmm. And Kevin Magnussen has shown flashes where he's been able to get top 10 finishes, maybe even a top 5 finish here or there. But he's very, very inconsistent with it. And this year and last year, when you compare his stats to Nico Hülkenberg's stats, Nico is out qualifying him and out finishing him
consistently,
pretty much across the board.
Consistently.
So we'll see. Formula One set to return, obviously, to Las Vegas later on this year, and undoubtedly had a very successful debut for the race last year, but it wasn't without its problems. We kind of detailed some of them here on the show back then. The residents of Sin City complained about the impact of things like road closures to allow for racing on the portion of the famed Las Vegas Strip. But out of all this, race organizers say 2024 is going to be better and things will be faster. And there's several reasons why. Number one, the first time you do anything is going to be arguably your slowest. And as you do it again and again in repetition, you start to understand how you can do these things and do them quicker. Plus, for last year, part of the racing surface had to be repaved, meant construction work. So that also disrupted things for workers and tourists alike in Las Vegas. Of course, being a street course, roads had to be closed off beforehand, couldn't be reopened until all the cleanup had been done and the temporary barriers had been removed. Las Vegas officials state that a lot of the prep work that had to be done for the debut of the race won't have to be done again, so things should move in a little bit later and be removed just as quick, if not quicker than last year. Of course, it doesn't hurt that 3 major casinos, Caesars, MGM, and Wynn, all have a stake in the race, so they're going to want to make sure that it works well for them as well. So, yeah. Now we just got to get past all those drivers who are complaining about the overly glitzy introduction situation. I still don't get that. So they put you up on stage without your helmet. They announce you. People in the United States get to see your face before you cover it up with a full-faced helmet. And you're going to complain that you have to stand there for 15, 20 seconds and have yourself announced? My gosh, the humanity! It must be horrible to be a star and have to put up with somebody actually wanting to put you up front to be a star.
Get paid $1 million a year to drive a car.
No, this was the one that's getting paid $30 and $40 million a year.
Oh, yeah. It was Max Verstappen.
30 times that.
The 55 million euro driver who was complaining about being paraded around like a piece of meat. You're getting paid $55 million a year. Suck it up.
Yeah.
Buttercup. When we come back.
Or more
I
like,
guess that's my...
or more like, if you don't like these driver intros, buckle up, Buttercup.
Yeah. Or quit. I don't care. When we come back, the aforementioned Andretti Global. Yeah, that soap opera continues. Plus, Pirelli has been kind of playing around with their tires a little bit. Talk about that when we come back as well. Plus, we got some sad news coming out of the world of NASCAR and racing as a whole. And it does, again, have to deal a little bit with Tony Stewart.
Stay right here for more on the Championship Racing Network.
coming into NASCAR with a new compound of tire specifically for the All-Star race. And it kind of reminded us a whole heck of a lot of IndyCar, really, and what Firestone was doing for them, in the fact that you had a primary tire, which was a black sidewall tire, or in the case of NASCAR, the yellow lettered Goodyear Eagles. But the softer compound tire, kind of like the alternate compound for Firestone and IndyCar, was red. Well, Formula One has 5 different racing slick compounds, which range from your hardest compound to your softest compound. And they pick 3 from every single week. And it could be anywhere from one far end of the scale to the other, or right in the middle, depending upon the track and the weather conditions. And the company will bring 3, and of course they'll bring wet weather tires as well, just in case. But over the course of the last, 5 years-ish?
Give or take, yeah.
Formula One's using more and more street courses as opposed to dedicated road courses. And that's kind of caused a bit of a challenge for the fine folks over at Pirelli. So they got to talking with some of the drivers, they got to talking to the team executives to get their input, and the result is they're working up now a 6th racing slick compound, the intent of using it on street courses, and reports state from Pirelli this will be the new softest compound of the set. What color they'll put on the sidewall, I have no clue. Pirelli Motorsport head Mario Isola said this, quote, We have very promising compounds to reduce overheating for 2025. The idea is also introduce a new C6 compound, a softer one, because in the calendar we have more street circuits on the schedule. We have more street courses. The real problem is to find the right trade-off between overheating and degradation, because we need to keep the degradation, but we need to reduce the overheating. That's not always easy because those two elements are connected. So in other words, they got research that they have yet to do. Now, if you're looking on CRN Live on YouTube, you're looking right there at the one end of this for the Monte Carlo race that just happened. Okay? And they brought the 3 on the softest end of the compound because it is a street course race. Number 1. Number 2, it's very tight. Number 3, it's very intricate. So you're not getting really a whole lot of speed. So you are allowed at that point in time to be able to use a tire that will be softer and degrade quicker, because here's the thing. Speed is what, in a lot of ways, causes it to degrade. You're not getting up that much speed. So it'll be very interesting to see what they do. But I don't think you're, like, Monaco and Vegas don't have that connection, if you think about it, though. And there's a specific reason why. Yeah, they're both street courses, run right in the middle of downtown. But if you compare Monaco to the Vegas street course, I mean, there's a, little more than a mile-long straight that they run in Vegas?
Yeah.
Dude, you're getting up, I mean, you're almost going max speed at that point in time in a Formula One car.
And probably 80 miles an hour quicker.
Yeah. So it does make a difference. It makes a vast amount of difference. So we'll see where this goes. And either way, it's not going to come in until 2025. But we wanted to let you know that it looks to be in the offing. Good grief. Here's the latest episode of the Andretti Global soap opera as Formula One turns.
Like sands through the hourglass.
These are the Pirelli tires of our lives. This time, McLaren boss Zach Brown got to talking, called the initial rejection of the Andretti Global team's F1 application, quote, anti-American, would be terming it unfairly. Okay, you say so. Brown talked to ESPN.com this week because, after all, he was in Indy for the Indy 500, and said, quote, I don't think there's an anti-American culture within Formula One at all. When you look at the sport, you've got European manufacturers. You got Ford from North America. You got Honda from Japan. So the sport is extremely global. I've never come across any favoritism or negativity toward any region of the world. The whole world participates in Formula One. But he added that he does see the other side of the coin. Quote, I'm sympathetic to the frustrations of Andretti, But the Formula One isn't welcoming America. I think it's unfortunate that the root of the issue has moved away from being between Andretti and Formula One and adding value. We've already dealt with the adding value thing. I'm not going to go back over that. But here's the thing. With Congress having fired a letter off to the Formula One management group recently asking for an investigation into potential antitrust implications, because they said, in case you missed it, that they're wondering if there is some form of bias because they want to bring the Cadillac mark into Formula One. It's not just a GM motor. They're going to brand it as a Cadillac. And Cadillac wants to expand their operations base and get into Europe, which means you're taking on BMW and Mercedes and Jaguar and Audi in their backyard. Good luck. But still, they're wondering if this isn't something of a shady deal on the part of the Aston Martin group, which is in Formula One, the Mercedes group, which is in Formula One. See where I'm going with that? In trying to keep Cadillac out. So that's why there was that particular letter that was fired off. But now this has, of course, brought back this call for Andretti to buy into or buy out an existing F1 operation. Didn't we cover that already?
Yep, we did.
What was the problem with that particular situation? Oh, that's right. Nobody's selling.
Nobody wants to sell.
He talked to Haas F1. No sale. He talked to Williams, which is owned by a U.S.-based financial company. Not interested in selling. He talked to Sauber. Oh, that's right. We're already being sold. We're going to Audi. Mercedes ain't selling. Red Bull ain't selling. Ferrari sure as shooting ain't selling. Aston Martin ain't selling. You see where I'm going with this?
Yeah.
Nobody's selling.
Nope.
So if you can't sell, or in the case of Andretti, if you can't buy into an existing team, but you still want to go racing, what's your only other option? See where I'm going? Didn't stop FIA President Mohammed bin Sulayem from saying in Monaco, quote, "I have no doubt Formula One management and Liberty Media would love to see other teams as long as they are OEMs, original equipment manufacturers." He continued, "I would advise them," talking about Andretti Cadillac, "to go and buy another team, not to come in as an 11th team. I feel that some teams need to be refreshed. What's better, to have 11 teams as a number or 10 and they are strong? I still believe we should have more teams, but not any teams, the right teams. It's about the number. It's about the quality." Well, hey, Ben, open letter to you right here. Ben, if you know of a Formula One team that's for sale, why don't you call Michael up? And until such a time as you call Michael up and say, team fill in the blank is for sale, remember, you're the one who opened this whole thing up. You took can of worms, put can opener on it, lifted the lid, threw the worms everywhere. That's you. Ben, you said, let's go see if we can't get applications for new Formula One teams. You got, I don't know, half a dozen, according to reports that we got. And out of the half dozen, you said one was good. It was Andretti Global. And then you turned it over to Formula One management. And everything that Michael Andretti and Andretti Global have been doing says they're going to come in and they're going to be serious about it. They're going to come in and fight to be a contender for wins and titles basically as soon as they hit, gentlemen or drivers, start your engines on race one of whatever year they get into it.
To quote the rate,
Quote the Raven? Nevermore?
No. To quote the late Ray Combs of the Family Feud host, survey says, ding.
I honestly believe this, and you're never going to get me away from believing this at all. I don't care if it's Gene Haas or Doralton Capital, owner of Williams, or Alpine, or V-Carb at the bottom of the deck, or at the top of the deck, your Red Bulls, your Ferraris, your Mercedes, your Aston Martins, your McLarens. I honestly believe that this whole, we don't think that they're going to bring an increase enough to make it worth it, is really the problem. I think it's a smokescreen. I think every single one of the 10 teams that's competing in Formula One right now are looking at Andretti Global, looking at how much they have already invested into the shop in Brownsburg, Indiana, having already opened up a shop in Silverstone, England, having said that we are going to compete not only in Formula One, but have plans to compete in the feeder series of Formula 2 and Formula 3, that they're already working on a car, and that General Motors / Cadillac is continuing to work on the F1 engine that they say will be ready by 2028. All 10 currently existing teams in Formula One are running scared.
They're shaking in their shoes. They are.
Because they're afraid that Andretti Global will come in and do what Haas F1 did in the first 2 races in their debut season in 2016, and that was score points. But then Haas F1 faded off. Do you honestly believe Michael Andretti has the intention of letting his team do that?
Nope.
They're scared. They're running scared. They're running wildly scared, like their hair is on fire. And I'm going to call every single one of them out. And I'll call out Liberty Media, the commercial rights owners of Formula One. I'll call out the Formula One Management Group, and I'll call out the FIA as well. Every single person involved in Formula One at any level, from the person who grabs the broom and sweeps out the garage to Mohammed Ben Sulayem, the head of the FIA, you are all scared of Andretti Global.
Because he's called every single check move with a checkmate every single time.
And that's all I have to say about that. When we come back, how long have we been running the Roval?
Too long.
Well, apparently things are about to change. Does that mean we get back to going on the oval? We'll get to that next, right here on CRN.
We will be right back with more on the Championship Racing Network. fuel only. Go, go, go. We're back to the Championship Racing Network.
Welcome back in. Final segment of this weekend show. Wow. Already made it to that point. Time's flying. Steve West, Matt Nicholson, producer John Myers, and we've been running the Charlotte Roval now for some years. Matt and I got the chance to experience it in person. Kind of enjoyed ourselves, truth be told, because seeing it live, kind of got a new respect for it. But let's face it, and we're not the least of them. We've been somewhat critical of this road course inside the half-mile oval for some time, and NASCAR apparently has been listening, strangely. Who knew? And begun talks about what to do with it. So does that mean that we're going to go from the track that you see on CRN Live on YouTube now, if you happen to be looking there, and going back to 2 oval track Charlotte races? No. They are talking about reconfiguring the Roval. The track will still feature 17 turns, still be about 2.3 miles long, but to get into detail, if you can find a map, those of you listening on the radio, please do. From turn 5 to turn 6 in the Roval, they're going to be a little bit longer straight. Turn 7 now becomes a hairpin. What? For those of you on CRN Live on YouTube, you'll see that in just a second here. By the way, they would also change the final chicane on the front stretch of the oval portion, turn 16 to be exact. The apex becomes a little bit sharper under the reconfiguration. Still not really sure why you're doing that, but okay. Why the changes? CEO Marcus Smith, Speedway Motorsports Incorporated, said this, quote, 2 distinct braking zones are going to really help the competition provide great overtaking opportunities. One of the biggest things we've heard is about off-throttle time in the oval racing. In the road course racing, you want as much of an opportunity as possible for a driver to play with the brake pedal, the gas pedal, and the steering wheel. And that's what a well-designed track is going to provide, those overtaking opportunities. So to our resident driver, I turn. Mm-hmm. And personal opinions about the Roval notwithstanding. You are driver of, well, since you like the number 10, I'll put you in the Stewart Haas Racing number 10.
Hey.
Sorry, Noah Gragson. As you are looking at this track, and you're comparing it to what it has been and what it apparently will become. Do you believe that there is more of a chance of overtaking on this particular configuration as opposed to the one that we have been running?
When you look at... Oh, boy.
Yeah, I know.
If I had to say anything, it's going to be between... I mute it.
Audio.
I'm going to say between overtaking, I'm going to say 6 down into 7.
Okay.
I mean, because you 5 is probably going to be, I mean, driving the old layout, and I'm going to talk driving the old layout versus how it's driven on iRacing.
Mm-hmm.
When you come off of 2, when you come off of 1 into 2, you go from first gear to second gear. And you could go to third gear if you maintain your speed right. But most of the time, it's second gear.
Yeah.
From 3 down into 4.
I follow you.
All right. You could grab third gear and swing through 5, working the brake and the throttle at the same time. But you down.
Yeah, because that doesn't seem a terrifically sharp. I mean, it's not. It's not a terrifically sharp curve.
It's not. Yeah, correct.
And 6 isn't really either. It's
6
a nice
is
sweeping
swing
corner.
curve.
Yeah, it's a nice sweeping corner.
The old layout, there's an overtake zone in 7.
Yes, because you're dealing with a hill and a bit of an off-camber turn.
So now with the new layout, 5, 6 down into 7, it's going to be much more higher speed. So it's now going to be going down into 7, who outbrakes who.
Okay. And that would tell me you're probably getting something of the same thing out of the reconfigured chicane going into the tri-oval there?
Yeah, which the reconfigured chicane makes no sense to me whatsoever.
Yeah, other than the fact that you're going to have the opportunity for one person to outbrake another.
You turn it from you're turning it from basically in about a 70-degree corner
To a 90.
to a hard 90.
And then almost another 90 going back to the left.
Yeah. So I see the 5, 6, 7, but 15, 16, 17 makes no sense.
All right. Correct me if I'm wrong. 10, 11, 12, the chicane on the back stretch, does that look a little bit sharper too?
Oh, yeah. Very much so.
So basically what they're trying to do is they're trying to create these situations where you have hard braking zones, and we want to find out whether or not you've got the guts enough to actually outbrake your opponent.
They eliminated, see, the old layout to the new layout, they eliminated an infield corner and added an outside corner.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't make any sense. Here's how we fix the problem, Charlotte. You snip out 10, 11, and 12. You snip out 1 over to turn 7, and you snip out 15 and 17, 15 to 17. Hey, we got the oval back.
Wouldn't that be neat?
That's how you solve the problem.
That'd be a cool idea, wouldn't it? Good luck. I don't know whether this goes into effect. I mean, basically the pavement's already there, I think.
You got to add that strip in between 5 and 6 down into 7.
Do you? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So I don't know whether it'll be ready this year or not. We'll see. This week, and remember, this is the final season of NASCAR's, or specifically Fox Sports' NASCAR Race Hub. And, well, they're still going to keep the Beyond the Wheel, very, very highly thought of segment. And I think that's great. They debuted the last 3 installations of them. Last Wednesday kicked off with a very obvious choice of one that was entitled One Team, One Dream, 40 Years of Hendrick Motorsports, digging into the history and the backstory of the team. If you didn't already know it, it's worth a check out. The next 2 installments are actually going to be interesting as well, and they will be on the next 2 Wednesday editions of NASCAR Race Hub. The first one will be Diecast Mania. They're going to go behind the scenes about the making of the popular NASCAR collectibles, of which I've got quite a few, and so does Matt. Then the final one is going to be one that I really want to watch. Steve Park, Destined, tells the story about how the late, great Dale Earnhardt plucked the modified driver up, put him in the one car, and how, in the wake of Earnhardt's tragic death, Park might have actually saved DEI. If you miss them when they air, they're going to be available on the Fox Sports app. And I say this again, if you haven't seen the Behind the Wheels in the past, these are very, very well done. Mini documentaries, really, is what they are.
They are.
And they're very, very well done.
They are.
And this is just another thing that we're going to miss in the wake of Fox Sports 1 making the amazingly stupid decision of canceling NASCAR Race Hub. Do I seem angry this week?
Nah, not really.
Did I say at the early part of the show that big news of the week sucks?
Yeah.
If you missed the beginning of the show, go back and check it out. Some sad news, unfortunately, with the passing of Jerry Gappens this past week. Gappens, if you were not familiar with him overly, we'll give you some of his history. He was with Speedway Motorsports Incorporated for 23 years, working up to becoming the executive vice president and the general manager of New Hampshire Motor Speedway from 2008 to 2015. Before that, he was the senior VP of events and marketing at Charlotte, there from 1993 to 2007. After he left MSI, or SMI, I should say, he joined with Tony Stewart and started working at Eldora Speedway, where he was the general manager of the track. Stewart said of Gappens, quote, Jerry came to Eldora with a wealth of experience and an equal amount of humility. No job was too big or too small. His attention to detail was impressive, and he made sure the fan experience at Eldora was exceptional, always finding ways to make improvements with each and every event that he oversaw. Gappens leaves behind his wife Cheryl and their 4 children. Gappens was 63 years old. The thoughts and the prayers of us here at CRN go with the Gappens family.
Entirely too young.
Way too young. 63. Dang. To the Xfinity Series, Austin Hill might be your Xfinity Series points leader, but his actions last week in Charlotte Motor Speedway still netted him a fine from NASCAR. He was fined $25,000 and docked 25 championship points for intentionally wrecking Cole Custer. NASCAR cited Rule Book 4.4b, the member code of conduct. If you happen to miss the Xfinity Series race last week with 18 laps to go, Hill and Custer were battling each other, got into each other in turn 4 while racing for 5th place. The result was a cut tire for Hill, but it didn't immediately go flat. It was just a slow kind of deflation. Slow leak. Going down the tri-oval front stretch, the two were banging doors. Then going into turns 1 and 2, Hill got onto the back bumper of Custer and started pushing him. Pushed him all the way until he spun the defending series champion out, Custer hitting the inside wall. Custer got credited with 32nd place. Hill unable to continue after the new tires, or able to continue after the new tires, I should say, finished 25th. But with the penalty, Hill drops to 3rd overall in the points standings. But again, he's got 2 wins from earlier this year, so he's locked into the playoffs. By the way, your new points leader is Chandler Smith of Joe Gibbs Racing. Docking him 25 points, I mean, I get the 25,000. But docking him 25 points does nothing. That did nothing.
Yeah. Another level of inconsistent officiating and inconsistent enforcement of Section 4.4b.a.c.f.z.x divided by 4.
Subsection, blah, blah, blah.
That's I mean, you had a car the week before. You had a car at the All-Star race literally hook another car into the wall. You penalize and fine the driver that got ticked off and took action against it. You penalize him. You do nothing to said driver that hooks other driver into the wall. But then now you want to, $25,000. Don't do that no more.
Mm-hmm.
I don't get it. I don't get it.
Here's the thing for Austin Hill. Your talent's there, kid. You've got the talent to go to the Cup Series. You're just waiting on a seat. But your brain isn't. You got some growing up to do. You can't do that. Beat him on the track. Don't take him out. Beat him. That's your ultimate revenge. If you don't like the way that Cole Custer's racing you, do better than him. Cole Custer's mentality and the way that he comports himself on the track tells me he's ready to get back into Cup. I'm not so certain. Every time I start to think I think Austin Hill's ready to go into the Cup Series, finally, you do something like this. And mentally, as a team owner, I put myself in the shoes of a Richard Childress, and I think I can't do it yet. And that's on you. AM Racing, meanwhile, hoping for more out of their number 15 Ford Mustang driven by Haley Deegan. So they've switched crew chiefs. Veteran crew chief Joe Williams no longer even with AM Racing at all. In his place, at least on an interim basis, the team has installed one Matt Lucas. Through the first dozen races this year, Deegan sits 26th in the standings with the best finish of 12th, and that happened at Talladega. Something's got to happen. They felt that it wasn't the driver. They felt that it was the crew chief.
The crew chief is not the problem. The crew chief is not the problem. The reason I say that is because I have had, and hear me clearly, I have had a former crew chief of Haley Deegan's directly tell me face to face she cannot give feedback on what the vehicle's doing.
And
she doesn't know how.
And there you go.
Along with other people. Oh, yeah. I said that loud?
Oh, no. Hey, it's been a few years since Clint Boyer got out of the Stewart-Haas Racing number 14 Cup Series car, moved into the Fox Sports booth, meaning it's been a few years since he, climbed in any top-level NASCAR riding competition for him. But that's about to change. When the series heads to Nashville at the end of this month, hey, welcome to June. We officially made it as of this morning. Boyer's been tapped to drive the Aspire Motorsports number 7 Chevrolet. All right. Boyer claimed 10 wins in Cup action before he retired after the 2020 season. He'll get his old crew chief back too, Brian Patty, who was his crew chief from 2012 to 2015 when the two were at Michael Waltrip Racing. Remember them kids? He's going to call the shots for this race. Boyer knows Nashville pretty well too. He's got 9 Xfinity Series starts at that track, and he's got 1 win there as well. Couple of drivers got their Truck Series season debuts today. Luke Fenhouse worked up a deal with a group called Soda Sense, leading provider of CO2 canister refills. They are becoming his primary sponsor for the race with Thor Sport in the number 66. Fenhouse has had success in the ARCA Menards and Super Late Model Series. Now we get to see what he'll do in the truck. Also racing later today, Vicente Salas will get his second career Truck Series race in. He'll be running the number 91 truck for McAnally Hilgeman Racing. Sponsorship from Surf Pro and Paint Material Handling. Salas got his first Truck Series race in earlier this year at COTA, coming in from late model racing mostly, so we'll have to see how those two do.
Another iRacer.
Should also be noted the Craftsman Truck Series passed a milestone at Charlotte Motor Speedway last weekend when they hit race number 700. Think about this. This series began in 1995 at Phoenix Raceway. Names have come and gone, but in addition to the series hitting the milestone, so did one guy, Chris Showalter. Showalter's currently the truck chief of the number 2 of Nick Sanchez at Rev Racing, but he's had a role with one team or another since that first race now 29 years ago. He talked to NASCAR.com and said, quote, "If I could have told you 30 years ago that I'd still be doing this, I would have called you crazy. It's just a testament to all of the great race teams that I've been with and all the people that I've surrounded myself with that keep me coming back every week. The Truck Series has always been a big family to me." Congratulations, Chris.
Good for him.
Do it, man.
Good for him.
And to Formula E real quick. Officials with Formula E are hinting that they've been talking to one big-name car maker who has been working on their own batteries in preparation for coming out with a line of electric vehicles. They broke ground in 2022 on a $500 million Euro E building. Talking Ferrari. Been working with battery tech since 2019 on the hybrid models called the SF90 Stradale and the 296 GTB. This led motorsport.com to ask Formula E CEO Jeff Dodds if the series has contacted Ferrari about maybe potentially becoming an entrant in Formula E, to which Dodds initially cryptically replied, maybe. Then he added, quote, I did the emphasis, probably not him. Then he added, quote, "They've announced an electrification plant in Italy and talked about a future electrical line for them. First time they've said it as a pure electric line as opposed to a hybrid. What does Ferrari have to say? Well, a statement from the company reads this, quote, "Our focus today is on F1 and endurance. And we have announced that we will be taking the race where we have never before, water." Seems they've announced that they have started a sailing team. Maybe they're going to try and enter the America's Cup?
And on that note,
in all of that, could that be a smokescreen? Time will tell.
correct.
We'll see. All right. What a week. Maybe this week will be less dramatic.
True.
Maybe we'll find out a little bit more about what's going on with the charters, and who knows, maybe even a couple of the drivers over at Stewart Haas Racing. We'll have to see. And we'll keep you updated on all of it. And, of course, we'll be here on Wednesday with an edition of Crossed Flags that should be up on all forums and platforms at about 4 o'clock. And then we'll talk to you next Saturday right here on the Championship Racing Network.
This has been a presentation of the Championship Racing Network.